Alright guys, time for a tip of the day with Jay. So today I was just going through a meeting and I thought it'd be a great time to talk about what are some of the best tips to optimize your meetings. Kind of one of the biggest problems I see with people in business today is they oftentimes forget about what's the actual point of a meeting, and they get carried off in a meeting that could have taken 30 or 45 minutes, ends up taking an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, right? So it's really nice if you can optimize your day, and a lot of this is done in meetings, right? Lots of people have days filled with meetings, so imagine if you can even optimize your meetings by 10 or 20%, that can kind of a lot of extra hours that you have at the end of the month. So let's start off. One of the first tips that I find that's most important is when you have a meeting, it's important to have an agenda for the meeting and know exactly what are all the different points you want to talk about. Don't just arrive into your meetings and then start saying, oh, you know, what was it again that we want to talk about? Here's the points, because you might oftentimes forget certain things that cause you to go back on kind of later on after the meeting and have to touch base with these people again and again. And so it makes you look more professional when you start off with an agenda, and it makes you helps you make sure that you cover all the points that you wanted to from the get-go, rather than having to go back later and kind of cover things up. So keeping an agenda, we'll even write them down. So having an agenda is a super important part, right? So let's have an agenda. Every time we get into a meeting, let's get an agenda for what do we want to accomplish in this meeting, right? Now this brings me to my second point. What do you want to accomplish? So the agenda is kind of like the topics, but also what's the purpose of this meeting? What's the big goal, right? So we want to have kind of a list of what is our goal for the meeting, right? What do we want to get out of this meeting? And so everything that you get with your goal should be part of the agenda. So once you define what's the goal, you should start making the agenda to see what do we need to kind of reach this goal. So that way, when you're making your agenda, you don't forget what's the bigger picture, what are we looking to achieve from this. Now the third thing that I find really important, and there's kind of aspects on both ends as to whether you want to do this or not, but having video meetings and conference meetings don't always have to be done in person. What I would recommend is do them, like I mentioned, is in a video meeting. If you don't absolutely need to meet face to face, avoid taking the extra 20-30 minutes it needs to transit there and transit back, because guess what, you could just get on a Google Hangout, Skype, wherever, and have this meeting rather than going out to have to meet the person face to face, which is not always needed in most cases. You can actually just do it over the phone, over Skype, over things like Google Hangouts, right, where you can actually share screens, etc. And sometimes it's even more efficient, and you can get more kind of points rather than having to show somebody your screen. They can just look at it through theirs. It's a lot nicer to do. So those are ways that kind of the three basic things that I would do is have conference calls online. So that way you guys don't have to worry about, oh, let me go out there, oh, how am I going to get back? And then you're saving money, right? Who needs to spend money to get to the meeting? You don't need to take your car, you don't need to take the bus or take an Uber or a taxi to get there. You can just do everything over conference calls with technology we have today. I mean, it's pretty obvious that you can get these things done and achieve the same level of efficiency that you have in a face-to-face meeting online. And so yes, there does come certain points where, you know what, it's nice to socialize. I wouldn't do all of my meetings through conference calls, but if you're that guy that goes out to meet every single person face to face when it's not needed, I would start slowing down on that and try and have as many as you can over the phone, especially if, let's say, you're doing deals with people who are just starting out in business or smaller businesses. You want to get a feel for them. You don't need to go out and meet them face to face. Kind of prospect them over the phone, see if they're right for you. Then you can have a meeting afterwards, but don't make it kind of a rule of business that every single time you want to meet with someone for the first time, or you want to have a meeting with one of your employees or your employees with you, etc., that you have to do it face to face. It can oftentimes be done over the phone or through conference calls, video calls, etc., using technology we have today. So that's the tip of the day. Thanks a lot. Take care, guys. Talk to you next time.